death about one speaker, Cesar Flores, who states, according to the minutes, came to the board meeting to question, and it goes on and on. He does not live in the town, nor does he have children in our district. She stated that she understands he introduced himself as staff members to one of our board members. In reviewing the video, he had said no such thing. Perhaps of greatest concern for our community is that in 2017, the board passed a resolution stating that Paramount Unified School District is a safe haven. It's a safe haven, therefore, in order not to discourage public participation, board members should never publicly or otherwise disclose information about where a speaker lives, how many children he or she has, nor should we ever speculate upon their lives in any way whatsoever. Lastly, on page second, or the second page, I noticed that board member Linda Garcia voted to approve the minutes of study session that was held on May 6, 2019. Legally, she cannot vote to approve minutes of a session which she did not attend. And for the record, if anyone wanted to see, I kind of feel like a lawyer at this point, but I do have right here where it states approved study session meeting agenda, May 6, 2019, absent board member Garcia.
That could be an error. You may want to
So
check that.
those are errors. So
Board members, if I may, we were just notified by our Director of Technology that the meeting recording is having some glitches today. The Ms. De Leon's latest comments were picked up, but the beginning of the meeting apparently is either garbled or non-existent. So we just wanted to let you know that right now it is recording, and it started recording a few minutes ago. But at the very beginning, the Pledge of Allegiance in the first couple of minutes, they notified me that they were having some problems. It appears to have been corrected now. So just wanted you to know, and it's on record, that the first couple of minutes of the meeting will have some problems today.
So
Sorry
Board
to
Member De
interrupt.
Leon, if you would like to repeat your comment in the beginning to capture it for the
Sure.
recording.
sure, this is great because I wrote it down so then I could be concise. This is why it's important, again, for minutes to be correct. So as I mentioned earlier, there was no consensus as to the board directing the superintendent, Dr. Perez, to take minutes differently, even though it is legal for her to do it, but that's not the point. The point is troubling that we are not in consensus to that. You are taking directives on your own. I also mentioned that community members would agree with me, especially those who question and concerns were not recorded in the minutes. This could be perceived as censorship when we should be striving for transparency. If I want to go back, I don't know what the public stated. I don't recall. I would have to go into video and look at all those details.
Yeah.
It's just a plethora of things that are not consistent and troubling. Second, I am concerned with the minutes, and now a combination of both action and discussion depending upon who is speaking. This is troubling. For example, questions posed by 4 members of the community were not recorded. However, board member Hansen spoke. Her words were recorded in detail, even when there were at times inaccurate. And it was twice that it was recorded. So I think the secretaries aren't collaborating and discussing what minutes and how to write them. For example, Hansen's comments in depth about a speaker, Cesar Flores, who states, according to the minutes, came to the board meeting asking questions. And then it goes on and on. Yet he does not live in town, nor does he have any children in our district. She stated that she understands he introduced himself as a staff member to one of our board members. In reviewing the video, he had said no such thing in any time. Perhaps of greatest concern of our community is that in 2017, the board passed a resolution stating that Paramount Unified School District is a safe haven. Therefore, in order not to discourage public participation, board members should never publicly or otherwise disclose information about where a speaker lives, how many children he or she has, nor should we ever speculate upon their lives in any way whatsoever. These are public meetings, and the public is welcome to come and state their opinion. It is their First Amendment right. Lastly, Board Member Linda Garcia voted to approve the minutes of study session May 6, 2019. Legally, she cannot vote to approve minutes of a session she was not in attendance.
Thank you. I have a change also on page 11. Oh, I'm sorry, on page 12. We're at the closed session portion. That needs to be taken out because it's a duplicate. And also, it does not state in here that I asked for legal counsel to give us some provide information to us about Board Member Garcia's right to be part of the board meetings. So I would like that reflected in the minutes, please. And I happen to like the new format. It's very difficult for staff to type up 3 pages of comments by board members and get it all properly right. I think these are legal, and I have no problem with them.
I would greatly disagree because our community has been asking for us to have transparency. And as you read the minutes, you were in disagreement. You disagreed that there was some information that is missing. And so for your narrative, it's very important that the public understands what you're trying to strive. There are a lot of things that were discussed, such as when I discussed with Mr. Romo, who's our legal counsel, I stated how often should we revise board policy. This is important because board policy hasn't been revised, or our bylaws, since 1983. That's when President Ronald Reagan was president. And he sadly is deceased now. We're moving into 2020, so it's not reflective of this, of who's asking questions and who's pushing to be into standards by the law as to how our district should be. So that's very important for the public to know who's doing what.
And I think you just misspoke because many of our board policies and bylaws are not from 1983. There were only a few.
Well, and I could rebuttal that, but this is not a rebuttal thing, but I have a board policy manual here, and it does give us a consensus of our outdated policies. And I could go on and read that. I'll take this right here and I'll quote it. It's from California School Boards Association. And 54.5 have an older adopted version dated or are missing. There is a high likelihood that district policies with an adoption revision dated that is older than CSBA adopted revision date may not reflect current law or at best practices. So we are out of compliance.
I call for the vote, please.
Can I have a vote to approve?
Governing Board Member Garcia.
Linda, are you there? I think there's a problem.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
there she is.
Governing Board Member De Leon.
Yes.
Governing Board Member Hanson.
Yes.
Governing Board Member Cuarenta.
Yes. Motion approved, 4-0. We will now have our employees' representatives reports. To begin with, we will have our TAP representative, Ms. Kim Goforth.
Good evening. I normally have a little more time to get my gum out of my mouth, and I just realized there's no kids here, so. All right, good evening, President, or Vice President Cuarenta, School Board, Dr. Perez, Cabinet, and guests. Summer has started, and it's time to relax. As I look through my Facebook page, many of my friends are teachers, shocking, and they are enjoying time. Some are in Hawaii, Mexico, Europe, on road trips to visit family and see our amazing country. And I can promise you that they will all bring back a little something for their classroom, maybe a book or an activity. There are also quite a few that are teaching summer school, including me. Providing summer school to all grade levels in Paramount is such a great opportunity for our students. Later this summer, TAP hopes to be back at the bargaining table. After taking a year off, we have a lot to discuss. Some items remain open from our last bargaining sessions, and we have a few new things, as well as salary and benefits. We know that the way to attract and retain great teachers is to have a strong contract, competitive salary and benefits, and a positive, stable working environment. I want to wish you all a wonderful July. I will be out of town for the next meeting. However, someone will be here to represent TAP, probably Maria, to talk to you and to represent our members. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kim Goforth. Now we will have our CSEA report with Mr. Brent McCarthy.
All right, let's see how this goes. Good evening, Vice President Cuarenta, board members, Superintendent, Dr. Perez, and Cabinet. As you know, my name is Brent McCarty. I'm currently serving as a Paramount Chapter 447 CSEA President this year. And June is a special month. As we close another school year and begin preparing for the upcoming school year, I'd like to take a moment and thank all the classified staff for another great year of services and every member who had a hand in putting together another stellar graduation ceremony for PHS, Buena Vista, and 5 middle schools. Thank you. I was compelled to speak tonight on the implementation of teachers' preparation time and in our elementary schools. Sorry, I don't speak in public, so. Where was I? Teachers prep time was started at the beginning of the school year 2018-19. And so have we completed an entire school year, all while negotiating the effects of the implementation of this rotation since October. We feel we have a large enough sample size to address the workload, stress, and liabilities that have arose. CSEA negotiations team has met with 4 out of 5 board members individually and spoken about our concerns, voiced specific concerns and requests, adequate training, resources, and compensation to address the added work requirements. You will hear from a few of our impacted employees tonight. CSEA asks you, the board of Paramount Unified School District, to direct the district's negotiation team on this matter with a fair, reasonable settlement that all parties can agree to, students, classified employees, and the district. With that, I'd like to thank the librarian, techs, technology, instructional assistants for rising to the challenge this year and providing their students with the professional care we strive for and expect from our classified employees. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brent McCarthy. We will now have our board members' reports on visits to schools, conferences attended, or scheduled meetings. Board Member Garcia.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, because half of his got frozen out, and so I wasn't sure. Good evening, everyone. I'm hoping you're having a great summer already. I have a couple of things to report on. I know I'm not there, but I do try and keep in touch with the groups and stuff. Topeka Sister City had an election, so President was still Frank Barraza. Vice President Carla, one of our awesome students that graduated last year with honors. And Treasurer is Rosemary Vasquez. So their meetings will be continuing, and they'll be having fundraisers. When I find out about any fundraisers, I will please let you know. And then I wanted to thank the adult ed and Mr. Lujan for walking this weekend in the 24-hour cancer relay. They went on and did that, even though I was not present, and my daughters went in my place and walked. They had a good turnout, and I just want to thank them for their support and thank the adult ed. I really appreciate it. That's it.
Thank you, Board Member Garcia. Board Member De Leon.
Good evening, and thank you for being here. I really appreciate your time. It's really hard, especially on a Monday. Everyone wants to be home, eat dinner especially. And I just want to say that I went to different graduations, and I was really proud to be at the high school graduations in Paramount, for the Paramount High School. I noticed that, there were so many students, 1,000 students to be exact, who graduated, who were honored, and you could see by what they wore, their regalia that they have on. So many students with high honors, students that have just different types of cords that distinguish them. And you could tell who's the valedictorian and whatnot, and you could tell who had what degree. We could, Dr. Perez looked great in her doctrine gown, and this is why it's very important that we wear what we have earned. We don't just give any student any regalia to wear if they haven't earned it. I was a little concerned or saddened that there was board members who wore hoods, and the hoods represents that you've earned a master's. And I would bring, in my information of who says what, and there is criteria, education code that says, okay, when you have a master's hood, that you wear a master's gown. Sadly, they didn't order my master's gown. Luckily, I brought my own master's hood. But it's just deceptive for those that have not earned a master's to be wearing a master's hood. I wouldn't be wearing, I can't wear a doctoral gown. I mean, I wish I could. I want to strive for that. But it's very concerning because we should be role models to our students of what we earned. Even if we earned a high school diploma, for some of the students, they were acknowledged as to who was the first to graduate. I was the first to graduate in my family to have a high school diploma, and there's nothing wrong with that. And so it was just a little upsetting that we don't take that seriously, being an educational institute. On the other hand, for the record, I also want to let the public know that in the last board meeting, June 10th of 2019, Jim Romo, who's our legal counsel, came, and I asked them how often should we revise or look at our board policy and our board bylaws, and he had stated around 5 years, but discussing with personnel from the school boards, California School Boards Association, or CSBA, they had said no, it's more like 5 times per year policy is being changed, so we have to look at it pretty much all the time. And we should even have someone in charge of that, so we're always on top of things and don't fall behind on any of that. In addition, I wanted to mention, because it's concerning to me that there are board members who still don't understand the board policy, and I understand it's a hard book to retrieve, and even when I called CSBA, they had said, oh my gosh, it's all rambled, it's not in order. But one of the board members had stated in an email that I was taking and placing items on the agenda without the majority's approval of the board. But here I'll read something that states that any governing board member may call the superintendent and request any item to be placed on the agenda no later than 5 days prior to the scheduling meeting date. In addition, I want to let the public know that as members of the public, you can also place something on the agenda. Of course, there are certain criteria that you have to meet, and I won't go into detail into that, but yes, as a public, you can also place something on the agenda that pertains to something in the school setting. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member De Leon. Board Member Hanson.
Thank you. Yes, the Buena Vista graduation and the Paramount High School graduation were incredible. Staff makes it look so easy, and we know it takes a lot of work to put all that together. I also attended the Relay for Life with the adult ed and did some walking. It was great to see some people from Paramount there to raise money to fight cancer. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Myself, it was an honor to be at the high school graduation as well as the transition student graduation. It's inspirational to hear so many young men and women who will one day be our leaders speak with words of courage, wisdom, and hope. And I really am proud of being up here, being a positive role model. And I know we've got a lot of work to do, but I think what's missing here is communication. So I hope that one day we can all sit down and really talk and meet in the middle. Because I think at the end of the day, we all mean well. It's just a lack of communication. Thank you. And now we will have the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Vice President Yesenia Cuarenta. It's my pleasure to be here this evening, and I want to ditto what was said about our graduations. It is truly the most emotional, inspiring, and rewarding time of the year to see our students graduate. I don't have the words ever to really adequately describe how wonderful it makes us feel. I just know that especially after the high school graduation, my legs are totally stiff from shaking 1,000 hands and moving back up to the podium. But it is such a joy to see our students. And not only that, but our students are going to Ivy League colleges and universities in our state, outside our state. And it's just wonderful to see that. It's truly si se puede, you know, yes, you can. And that's the dream that we continue to tell our students, to believe in themselves and believe in their future. The other thing I wanted to share is in the last couple of weeks, my team and I have been, with the support of teachers and administrators from the district, we've been busy interviewing for positions at the high school, particularly administrative positions, dean and assistant principals. We do have a lot of positions open, and we want to interview as many candidates as possible that are out there because we want the best for our students. I am also personally seeking to have representation for our students of their gender as well as ethnicity, because I do believe that our students need to see not only Latinos, but African-American administrators that they can aspire to be, that can relate to them, can talk to them, and at the same time be administrators that are strong, positive, and come to us with excellent recommendations. So we have done a lot of interviewing. In one day, we interviewed 14 candidates, another day, 8 candidates, and we continue in the process because we want that representation for our students. We must have that representation for our students, and we're very passionate about that in our district. So this evening, something very wonderful. Board members, at the June 10th Board of Education meeting, you signed an agreement with our partners at Compton College that provide our students with a wonderful opportunity related to college and careers. Excuse me for just a moment. I wish to thank the Board of Education for your support of these efforts on behalf of our students. We seek partnerships in our district that support learning opportunities for our students and provide resources to help meet their college and career needs. Our district strategic plan has 4 focus areas, and one of them is to prepare college and career graduates. Reading directly from the strategic plan, it states that, quote, all Paramount, and we mean all Paramount Unified School District graduates will be prepared for success in both the college and career of their choice. Students will possess the knowledge, skills, and certifications necessary to be successful in any post-secondary environment. Compton College has been a good friend and a strong partner to help our students benefit from early college opportunities. Those include classes leading to college credit at the high school, and most recently, the beginning of an early college program, Administration of Justice, where our students have the opportunity to earn an AA degree by the time they finish high school. Tonight, we are pleased to celebrate with our friends from Compton College the Paramount Promise that will provide benefits, services, and supports to Paramount Unified School District graduates who pursue their college education for years to come. The work toward establishing the Paramount Promise started about 3 years ago when Dr. Smith and a team of leaders from across the secondary educational services team came together with Compton College's president, who's in the back, and will be in the front soon, Compton College's president and CEO, Dr. Keith Curry, and his team to answer a bold and important question. How can our institutions work closely together to ensure that there is a college degree in every Paramount home within 20 years? The Paramount Promise provides students with several benefits, including waived enrollment fees for 2 years, up to $400 that can be used towards the purchase of books and supplies during the fall and spring semesters, participation in a laptop tablet program that the student can keep during the second year of college, other important supports and services like access to summer bridge programs and priority registration. Additionally, what makes the Paramount Promise unique in its connection to UC Irvine. The Paramount Promise is one of the only agreements of its kind in our area with a connection to a University of California school. Paramount students who enroll at Compton College and complete the requirements of the transfer admission guarantee receive a tremendous amount of support and benefits upon enrollment there. This agreement has established a clear pathway for Paramount students to Compton College through UC Irvine and truly represents the best of what is possible when stakeholders come together to make a difference for students. I'd like to thank once again Dr. Smith for his leadership of this effort, as well as his team. I'd now like to first thank the board once again for your support at the last June 10th board meeting to sign the Compton and Paramount Promise. And I'd now like to introduce Compton College's president and CEO, who will say a few words about the Paramount Promise as well as other aspects of our partnership, and introduce his board members and team, some of whom will also say a few words. We will then have a ceremonial signing of the agreement and take a few photos. Everyone, please welcome Dr. Keith Curry.
Good evening. I'd like to say thank you to the Board of Education, and also to Dr. Perez, and also to our administrative team for allowing Compton College to be a partner and a friend with Paramount Unified School District. I do have 2 board members who are here as well. One will speak in a second. I do want to introduce our board president, Dr. Deborah LeBlanc, who is a representative of Paramount and also the board president. And then also we have Ms. Barbara Calhoun, board member, trustee area number 2. So I'm at a loss for words because Dr. Perez said everything that we're doing in Paramount Unified School District. So I was going to highlight some of our programs and our services, but Dr. Perez, you did an outstanding job, and I don't have to repeat that. But I will go into the comment in regards to friendships and relationships. Someone told me about 10 years ago how important friendships and relationships are in education, especially when we're trying to do what's right for students. And so I believe the partnership that we have with Paramount Unified School District starts with friendships and also relationships. It started with the initial conversations with Dr. Perez, being able to start saying, this is what Paramount is looking for. And I'm saying this is what Compton wants to be in the future. And we worked through the challenges that Compton College has had in the past with Paramount Unified School District. And now we have a solid relationship that's based off of a friendship and collegiality. And I do want to say thank you. And I also want to say thank you to Dr. Smith, the associate superintendent, or assistant superintendent, I don't know what his title is anymore. I do want to say thank you to him and his team, because they are on our campus at least once per month meeting with our team regards to the initiative that we have implemented, from the after-school classes we provide after school at your high school sites, to the new program for the dual enrollment for AB 288 for administration of justice that started last week at Paramount West for ninth graders. This is a creative partnership that's new for us with ninth graders who will be able to receive administration of justice degree by the time they graduate from our institution, to the work that we've been doing at the adult school for cosmetology. So there's been a lot of work that's been done, and I want to say thank you to the team, Dr. Smith, and also Dr. Francois. I don't know where he's at, but they are at our meetings every single month, working through any issues that we might have to make sure that we're doing what's right for Paramount Unified School District. And I would tell you, they hold us accountable, because they always say, okay, how can we do something that's different and that's better than that C school that's over there by Paramount? I won't say that school's name, but it begins with a C. But if you know, you probably can read between lines of what that school is. But we want to be better than that other C school that's over that way. And so for us, being held accountable by Paramount Unified School District has been very helpful, because it forces us to be different. What we're doing with cosmetology is different, has never been done before. We're offering one of our signature programs at an off-site location in Paramount. The Administration of Justice Cohort Program, this is a new initiative we're implementing with Assembly Bill 288, and Paramount Unified School District is the first one. We're starting with a cohort program of ninth graders. And then also our promise agreement. This promise agreement is better than a promise agreement that we have with Compton Unified School District and also Linwood Unified School District. So their agreement has to be revised because they want the same deal that Paramount got. So everyone's following this deal as a part of the blueprint. So thank you, because Paramount pushed us to be better as relates to our agreement. But also, I want to thank someone who's no longer living, and his name is Oliver Connor. And it's very important for me to mention this individual. This individual passed away in 2016. He passed away and left, he had a will where he left his property and his estate to Compton College. Through that estate, which is valued at about $9 million, $6 million go to fund the Promise program. This is how we're able to provide additional incentives for our students. So without that partnership with the Oliver Connor family, this would not be possible. And that's why the students from Paramount who participate in the Promise program will be a part of the Oliver W. Connor Promise program, because those funds are supporting not only the students from Paramount, also Linwood, and also Compton Unified School District. So that concludes my comments, but I do want to introduce Dr. DeBoer LeBlanc, Board President.
Good evening. Thank you very much, Dr. Keith Curry, and to my distinguished colleagues here on the governing board of the Paramount Unified School District, to Dr. Smith, and to Superintendent Perez, and to my distinguished colleagues from Compton Community College District. It is an honor to be here tonight to celebrate in this wonderful promise agreement. But I have to say that it has been an honor to represent the Paramount School District, the Paramount community on the Compton Community College District Board, where I've served for the last decade. I've been there for the last 10 years. It's been an uphill battle, but it's getting better every day. And it's opportunities like tonight that make all the work worthwhile, because in the final analysis, it's all about preparing our students today for a better tomorrow. Thank you so much.
So I do want to make sure, I would like the individuals, I got the vice presidents from Compton College and also our deans and directors who are here. Can you please stand just so you can be recognized? Compton College staff.
All right.
So just showing you from the representation here today, we're all in with Paramount Unified School District. We're committed to making this partnership work and also our friendship continue to grow and become even stronger than what it is today. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Now we'll have the ceremonial signing by our vice president and our board, and we'd love to take a picture with your board members, Mr.
Yes,
Curry.
absolutely. And their staff.
And their staff
Yes.
for our papers. So would you all come forward?
Do we all need to go down there?
Yes, yes,
Cynthia.
yeah. The signing is,
Tell me how to do it.
Get out of that picture.
this one.
I think
You tell me, I'm doing what you tell me.
Oh, yes. Oh, just, okay, got it.
Oops, sorry.
Let's go ahead and sign,
Let's do that.
and we can take a picture of this.
So one is for you, so you can.
Oh, thank you. I'll give it my most colorful. We will frame this and put this in the,
All right, Dr. Smith. I saw that.
Does your Cynthia need to sign?
no,
Just
no,
you
it was
guys.
just both of us. I didn't know. Yes. But it is available for a picture. Dr. Curry, would you like to hold one, and I'll hold one for the picture? Yeah.
I'm with you all the way.
All right.
So you want to do the board?
Yes, picture. Right there, right? Taking the picture. Come on over. Viviana? Viviana? One more. Oh, absolutely. Compton staff, please come forward.
Presidents, deans, directors. So if we can have the two boards step forward. If the two boards can step forward, we'll start filling in the EPs and the deans in the back. We're gonna need 2 rows, we're getting too wide.
I gotta get up. You gotta get up and join us. No, you guys are doing great.
Just go alternate.
We're doing real good.
We're getting kind of wide.
We rearranged it.
All right, Steve, duck out a little bit.
There you go.
Okay, panorama. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Here we go. Okay, now over here, please.
Oh, one more.
To frank this.
One's for us, one's for them.
He has this.
Okay, we'll
Yeah,
put it
we'll
in there for
frame.
now. So that it doesn't President Cordetta. Put it in a
I
significant
take care of it.
place.
I will.
You're gonna frame it?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, awesome. Thank you, sir.
It was so nice to hear that story about the gentleman who went to that
6 minutes.
mega faith, right? It's a great mega faith.
I'm gonna frame it. Okay. I'll give you guys a break.
Thank you, Compton Friends. Thank you, Board of Education members. The next item under Superintendent's Report is the Budget Report by Mr. Ruben Frutos. I do want to thank the board members that took the time to meet with Mr. Frutos and ask questions about the budget. It is a very difficult document to try to comprehend the expenditures of over $200 million, and the time that was dedicated to that, staff has greatly appreciated.
Thank you, Dr. Perez. Good evening, Vice President Cuarenta, board members, superintendent, colleagues, and members of the public, more colleagues. Today, we are presenting to you both the actual information for 1819 and the budget report for 1920. With me is our Director of Fiscal Services, Patricia Tu, and we'll take turns presenting some of this information. To start, I can tell you that this is a new year, not just literally, but also figuratively. The years of additional one-time money, as we have been hopefully preparing you for the last few months, are here. And we will present to you a budget that's significantly different than the last few years. It is a leaner budget. It is based on just COLA as an increase, but it's also a balanced budget that we believe the county will approve without hesitation. We believe we have healthy fund balances, and more important, that we are presenting a budget that leads with the indicator that we need to be stronger at managing our expenses. We want to share with you the budgeting cycle. The budget cycle for the year starts in January with the governor's budget. You may remember that we brought to you some initial information that's fluctuated. And one example is the COLA. The COLA at one point started a little bit below 3%. It quickly went up to 3.2. It went up to 3.26 and then to 3.46, only to settle a little bit below at 3.26 again. So in January, we get that information and we wait until the May revise to come to you with more solid numbers. By that point, we need to prepare the budget that you are adopting today that takes you down to June, and the state budget is still deliberated and approved. By December, we need to bring you the first interim. By March, the second interim. Those are the quarterly reports when we bring you updates. And then again, June, a year from now, we do the LCAP and the budget adoption. Everybody knows the LCAP is a component of the overall budget. By September, we bring you the unaudited actuals. And the unaudited actuals, just to remind you, are that portion of the budget is an annual statement that reflects what happened in the year, but the information is yet to be audited. And finally, by December, we need to finish auditing the report and bring it to you for review and approval. So that's a picture of an entire year of budgeting, and right now we are in June adopting the budget. I'm going to turn it over to Patricia to discuss where we are in the budget and some of our elements.
Good evening. So like Ruben had just mentioned, our budget that we're presenting tonight is a combination of what the governor released during his May revise, what fiscal information we know today, and also guidance from the Los Angeles County of Education regarding CalPERS rates, CalSTRS rates, and the Consumer Price Index, and anything else that is relevant to creating a budget for the next school year. So a quick summary of what we're presenting are that's part of the budget is our 2018-19 estimated actuals. So what we know is that we have continued decline in enrollment, which results in a continued decline in ADA, but our fund balance remains healthy for the end of 2018-19. For our 2019-20 adopted budget, we know that there's no more gap funding. We're at full funding. The state has given us everything that they've promised to designate to Paramount. COLA is confirmed at 3.26%. However, there is no more one-time discretionary funds per Governor Newsom. If we remember, Governor Brown was a very big advocate for one-time monies if he had anything extra, but in 2018-19 would be the last year that we see those funds. So in relation, in 18-19, we received close to 2.7 million in one-time funds, and that is going to be discontinued for 2019-20. And also a new requirement for 19-20 is that 3% of general fund expenditures must be dedicated to routine restricted maintenance. So what that means is we have to take a look at all of our expenditures as a whole, and then 3% of that amount is now set aside for specific use. So now, because of that, it's very important for us to start looking at our expenditures and managing them. So how does our enrollment and ADA look? The orange boxes at the top for our enrollment indicate that we've dropped below the 15,000 threshold this year. And then because of that, in 19-20, we're dropping below the 14,000 threshold for ADA. And as we know, a school district earns their revenue from ADA, and as ADA declines, we do have a hold harmless where the state will always fund us at the higher of either last year or this year's ADA, just so that districts can prepare so they're not surprised with a shortfall of revenues. And Ruben will take over for the comparison.
So although every year the district will benefit from us seeking the better of this year or the prior year, the state is aware that when a district is in declining enrollment, you have to catch up. Eventually that less amount from last year will be our funding, et cetera, et cetera. So we wanted to paint a picture to you because revenue is everything on a budget when COLA is the only amount we get. So this chart shows several years worth of attendance. And as the board may remember, P2, which is the amount of student attendance from first day of school to April 15, is how we get funded. So when you look at our attendance at P2 from 14-15, 15-16, et cetera, until 18-19, which by now is certified, you notice how we have been losing attendance at grade span levels. So when you look at grades K3, we had 4,200 students in 14-15, 3,897 in 18-19, a loss of 7.91%. So almost 8% of our students were lost in K3. And this is where we start doing a lot of analytical work, because it is important for us to know what's going on. It could be that we have less building in our community, less families moving, less young families, etc. Grades 4-6 is our highest loss at 10% from 14-15 to 18-19. It is significantly higher than any of the other groupings of students. Grades 7 and 8 is about 5.3. So elementary loss is about 5.5, with again a highlight on grades 4 through 6. Secondary has a combined loss of about 3.82, and there's an amount there at 25%, but that's a continuation high with just a couple of hundred students. So it's important for you to see it, but it doesn't really play an important part in the overall when our high school population is 4,500 students. So overall, the district has lost about 5%, that's the pink, all the way across in the last few years. And it is significant because, as Patricia said, we used to be a district of over 15,000. Actually, we were a district of over 16,000 some years ago. I actually pulled this about 12 years just to see if it made sense. And our decline is steady. It's not precipitous, but it is steady, and it's important because it's a reduction in revenues every year. So this is a new chart that we will keep track of to see where and how our attendance deviations are from year to year. So with that, we begin to look at a budget. A budget with less students should be a budget that modifies certain behaviors. And as we looked at our teacher population for next year, you will see in the light blue that we had a certain number of positions in the last few years. As we were looking at the projections for the subsequent year, you will see a smaller amount. We are trying to do that through attrition. This district is trying very hard not to reduce staffing, but simply if staffing retires or leaves the district, that we capitalize on that. And right now we are budgeting at about 13.9 less positions than the prior year. What does that mean? Well, as you look at the classroom staffing analysis on the upper right corner, you will see that same number that we showed you in the other slide, an ADA of about, an attendance of about 14,200. When you look at the student ratios based on our contract, you will see that we need approximately 483 teachers, and we always add 5%. Why is that? We cannot staff to attendance. We have to staff to enrollment. And our enrollment in this district is about 95%. It's very good. So we wanted to make sure that we looked at what is our ratio, how are we staffing? And right now it's about 29.39 for the entire district, assuming that we have that decline in the number of teachers. So what does that mean in dollars? When you look all the way at the bottom on the right, if we have a staffing adjustment of 15 teachers, and the cost with benefits is about $98,500 with benefits, the savings to the district would be about $1.5 million. That's savings, and hopefully without having to do any staffing other than natural attrition. What happens with our revenues? Well, if you look on the left side of the same chart, you notice that the P2 ADA, that's the number of students that we get funded on, dropped by 447. We receive approximately $10,500 in general funds. We get other categories, but that's a good conservative number, which is a loss of $4.6 million. So as you can see, we would need to lose a lot of staff to make up our revenue losses. That's where reserves come in. So the district, thanks to the board, has built a very strong reserve that allows us to patch up some of these discrepancies over the next couple of years, and we will continue managing our expenses to reduce proportionally to our population loss of students. So we wanted to paint you this chart because this is how we budget. The next one is an actual picture of our budget. On the left side, you see an actual snapshot of the budget that we are presenting to you today. It shows that for this past year, we had a total budget of close to $200 million, and we had a proportionate number of expenditures. You will see that even though at the beginning of the year we came to you and said, we think we have an imbalance of a few $1 million, by the time the year ended, we had a deficit of around $1 million. So considering the amount of expenditures in the district and the amount of reserves that we've been able to build, we started the year with $51 million in reserves. We ended the year with about $50 million. It's a very good budget. And the fact that we only deficit spend by $1 million with the size of our budget is very good because we are maintaining program. What is the translation? Well, we need to continue using our reserves over the next couple of years to maintain program while at the same time reducing our expenditures, primarily in the area of staffing. On the upper right side, you see one of the more critical numbers that we have, which is the increasing cost of STIRS and PERS. It's something that you, the board, get a lot of training when you go to and get CSBA information. You know that we have to budget for STIRS and PERS and that the number is increasing. We do have some relief coming for STIRS this year, but the number continues to grow. So it's just one of those numbers that we will continue to bring to your attention. And finally, on the lower right side, this is an update. Your original budget book had a couple of additional positions listed. This is the final list of positions that we are adding. Every year in your budget book, we try to give you, these are the increasing number of positions. And this year, because of the way our budget works, that's it. That's all the budget has included. So we have some teachers, some school nurses, some social workers, and some curriculum specialists, all of which are included in the budget, but no additional staffing is included. And if you remember, we have budgeted for a loss of about 13 teachers. So I'm going to turn it over to Patricia to talk about revenues and expenditures.
So with the information that we know today, our unrestricted revenues come out to $174.5 million for 2019-20, and this is unrestricted general fund revenues. And the district projects to incur 26.8 of that million of that in encroachment to cover district programs that are not fully funded by program resources. Some of those listed are special education, routine restricted maintenance, which is the new 3%. So that's the 6.4 million that you see there, and our after school start program. So with all of that added up, and that comes out to 26.8 million. So that leaves us with unrestricted revenues of 147 million to work with. And then as we take a look at the future and how projections are trending right now, potential programs that are potentially encroaching are also adult education, child nutrition, and transportation. On our expenses, it's just a little bit of summary that we are primarily a service-related industry. So most of the largest component of our budget is for personnel costs because we are educating students. And then the rest of books and supplies, services are all broken out listed there. So the total that the district has budgeted for expenditures in 2019-20 is 164 million. So with all of that down broken out, 58% of expenses are for employee benefits alone, and salaries are total amount of salaries are 58%, and employee benefits alone are 23%. So the unrestricted general fund here for 2018-19 estimated actuals as a snapshot, taking into account what we project we'll end with our revenues and expenditures and anything else that we will be using under total sources. We estimate that we will, the total change in fund balance will be 792,000 from our reserves that we'll be spending. So you can see there in the ending fund balance that we go from 51 to 50 million. So what are the components of that 50 million? And that is listed here. We have our revolving cash, our stores, deferred maintenance, LCAP retention, statutory costs for future PERS and STIRS increases, step and column, and reserve for economic uncertainty.
One of the important things in a year where the budget is consuming our reserves is to show you what do we believe the projections are for the next couple of years. By law, we have to give you 3 years, and the state will not approve our budget if we don't have 3 years worth of projections. So we wanted to show you what we're doing with this chart. Our revenues in 1920, after the encroachment, remember we have encroachment in at least 3 categories, will be about $147 million. And we believe at this point, if every dollar is spent, and remember this is the same conversation we brought to you at the beginning of the year, not every dollar is spent, but we have to account for every dollar. If every dollar was spent, it would be about $160 million, which would give a structural deficit of about $22 million. Remember, we're standing on a $50 million reserve, which would bring our reserves to 28. That's the same scenario we painted to you at the beginning of this year. It improves as the year goes by. In one, we see economies of scale and reductions, and we also see amounts that will not be spent. For 2021, a similar situation. We would start the year at 149 for revenues, and we would finish the year at $16 million. The third year is the difficult one. If we don't correct our expenditure trend, we would finish the year with $6 million. Now, that's still an approvable budget. The county would see that we have the necessary requirements to approve, but it wouldn't be a budget that meets the criteria that the board has set, which is to have a stronger reserve that has at least a couple of months worth of payroll. So our goal over the next 3 years is to reduce the expenditures of the district to make sure that that third year we don't end up with $6 million, but that we end up with a stronger budget. That's why expenditure management and analyzing our revenues is so important now that the one-time monies from the state are being reduced. This is the same chart, but in graphical format. Unless we manage our expenditures this year, we would have a significant deficit. If you notice, as we close 18-19, there is a very small deficit, and it is the first year, as we had mentioned, that we have been on a deficit for some time, mainly because the governor was giving an additional couple of $1 million every year. That's no longer coming. So our goal, again, is to manage expenditures primarily in areas such as staffing. So if there's anything that comes with new staffing, we would analyze it, come to you, and showcase what the expenditure is. Finally, what are the concern areas as we look at our budget year for 19, 20, and beyond? Obviously, attendance and enrollment is primary. That is the biggest impact on our revenues. Staffing is number 2. It consumes the majority of our budget. So it is an area that we will be communicating with the superintendent and the board regularly. And special education, because it is our biggest encroachment. What are other areas that we're going to be reviewing? Services and consultants is important because services is an area that obviously takes directly from our funds for any contract that we enable. Travel and conferences, simply when the one-time money goes away, you need to look at areas where we're spending, and we will bring reports that talk about that. And finally, transportation is another area that we are going to be looking at. Transportation has a direct correlation to special education in our district, but also regular transportation. And what are some of the adjustment goals as we develop the budget for this year and the multi-years? We want to always use the most restricted dollars first. So you will see us talking to you a lot about restricted dollars, how they are being used, and legally, how can they be used, which is not a conversation we've had before. There is one thing about this is how we want to use a dollar. That's not the conversation now, is how can we use that more restricted dollar? And we will bring recommendations to the board that are budgetary in nature, not programmatic in nature, because we're running out of money. And finally, an all funds review, meaning we have multiple funds and the funds can help each other. It is not really our fault. The district did nothing to force the state to mandate that now we have to reserve 3% for restricted maintenance. But imagine, 3% of our budget was just taken away by Ed Code and reserved. So we need to look at that and see how all the funds are interacting. We expect to do a mid-year staffing and attendance review. What does that mean? Some districts do that proactively, meaning they make adjustments. We are not suggesting that, but we are suggesting that at mid-year, we analyze how our staffing is working in relation with the student and attendance review that we'll have. We'll have P1 by then to provide a report. And finally, SELPA changes and charges. As the board knows, because we've given you updates, the SELPA is in transition. Instead of the LA County SELPA, we now have the 2 SELPAs working together and providing services. We know from some of the reports provided by Downey, who has inherited some of the services that the SELPA is providing, that there will be some increases to the services, and we want to make sure that's part of the budget conversation. So what happens next? We started this with a process conversation. The light blue is where we are today. We are bringing to you the adoption of our budget. In September, we will bring you the unaudited actuals, and that will be this year's information once the year is completely closed in anticipation of the audit, and then we'll start the audit report. As a reminder, we had a really good audit last year. If the board remembers, no findings, a perfect audit. Please don't expect the same for next year. And finally, what happens next? For 1920, the State Budget Act will be adopted. We have 45 days from the date to adjust our budgets. What will be a major adjustment? Some unknown that comes on the last moments of the legislator negotiations. Then we will be closing the books. Typically, Patricia's team does a wonderful job closing by the end of the summer. And then the unaudited actuals will be submitted to LACO by September 15 of this year. And that will conclude
Unaudited actuals are?
The unaudited actuals, as I mentioned at the beginning, are a report of the actual information that includes all the information of the prior year ready to be audited. So we are happy to answer any questions that you might have regarding the budget report. Again, we are expecting the county to approve it without reservations. There are no questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Vice President Cuarenta, that concludes the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Dr. Perez. We will now look at the board meeting calendar. Any addition to or changes in the regular meeting and/or special meeting calendar will be discussed. This evening, we need to approve the special board meeting for August 6, 2019 for the superintendent's evaluation process. Can I have a motion to approve?
I'll move.
Motion was made by Vivian Hanson. Can I have a second to the motion?
I'll second.
Motion was made by Linda Garcia. Does anybody have any questions or
The time of the meeting will be
5:30.
5:30. Thank you.
any other questions, board members? Can I have a vote to approve?
Governing Board Member Garcia,
Yes.
Governing Board Member De Leon,
Yes.
Governing Board Member Hanson,
Yes.
and Governing Board Member Cuarenta.
Yes. Motion approved by 4-0. Board members, are there any other changes to the regular meeting and/or special meeting calendar? Okay, no, thank you.
Have none.
We will now move to the hearing section. Persons wishing to address the board will fill out a blue card located in the table by the door and submit the completed card to the secretary. Speakers will be called in sequence during the hearing section, which is limited to 1 hour, and each speaker to one presentation of 3 minutes unless the board wishes to waive the limit. The board cannot engage in public discussion during this portion of the agenda per Government Code Section 54950-54963. Staff will follow up and address public inquiries. Those who have a group concern are encouraged to select a spokesperson to address the board. Persons wishing to address the board on a specific agenda item at the item is under discussion are limited to 3 minutes each and will be called to speak following the staff comments and prior to the board discussion and taking action. Are there any blue cards, Ms. Preciado?
Yes.
Thank you. We will start with Reno Redula.
Thank you. Good evening to everyone. I speak before you, Paramount School Board members, to ask and remind you of what, as a policy-making body or enforcer for academic standards to Paramount K-12 students, are you now equipped as required by the State Board of Educators, the powerful instructional materials and digital library of resources to help improve classroom instruction, to better our Paramount children's education, to prepare them for college education. We parents should expect from Paramount Unified School District that our children have often passed through the rigorous statewide academics standards, most especially in math and science that are toughest subjects of all, but a perfect preparatory subjects for college education that lead them to success in the future. We have to make it sure that you school board members must see to it that our Paramount students also currently enjoy federally funded programs that are being run by the state educational agency. You are accountable and responsible for children's needs, not limited to required healthy food standards, and finally, transparency for public and parents' trust. Speaking of transparency, you members of the school board shall exercise all the time the transparency of accounting, whether it is budgetary financial losses or gains, good and bad policies as a result. And most of all, the daily children's food that they eat to make it sure their food is healthy enough for their physical and mental alertness. You must tell the public, since it is taxpayers funded school. The public must have the rights to be informed. You school board must ask voters to spend dollars in the purpose of referendum to impose their term limits on this board, to also give way for the newcomers, as opposed to status quo with the same people that are always backed by the politicians. I believe in democracy. It is the right thing to do, to always have term limits in school board. And lastly, since our planet's polar ice is melting so fast as a result, we experience global warming now. Teach the kids also how to plant trees in school vicinities to fight global warming. I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reno Redula. Next, Lisa Bravo.
Good evening, board members, Dr. Perez, and cabinet. My name is Lisa Bravo, and I have worked for the district for the past 20 years. I'm currently the library technician at Jackson School. The job description that I was handed by Human Resources 20 years ago does not correspond to my current duty as a library technician now. It did not state that I would be in charge up to 36 students by myself on a weekly basis. I'm not a credentialed teacher. Therefore, I do not have the proper tools in my belt to deal with the discipline issues that I have encountered. I have been mocked by students, called inappropriate names, and have been disrespected. I truly believe that we as library technicians earn what we're asking for. As you know, we are not teachers, but we are given the duties as if we were one. I hope you hear our frustration and move toward our negotiations. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa Bravo. Up next, Tom Jackson. Tommy, sorry about that.
Good evening, board members. My name is Tony Jackson. I am the librarian at Lincoln School. I will be starting my 34th year here in Paramount Unified School District. I'm sure you're all aware of the negotiations we started with the district regarding rotations and teacher planning times at our campuses. I can only speak to my schedules, but I know this is a problem at all elementary libraries. Since 2014-15 school year, I have been doing 2 weeks a month, 3 days a week, at 40 minutes per rotation, all without a credentialed teacher. I see every student, every grade level, that's over 650 students. Now, mind you, this is aside from the duties we were hired to do, taking care of textbooks, Chromebooks, and the library. Then in 2018-19, they implemented the teacher planning in an effort to cut costs. This additional work was placed on the backs of the classified librarians without notice or discussion. This is 2 weeks a month, 5 days a week, 45 minutes per class without a credentialed teacher. And again, I see every student and every grade level. It's a huge responsibility and liability placed on us as classified without additional support or adequate compensation. We care tremendously for our students and want to ensure a safe and educational environment. We often work through our breaks, lunch, and at times have to stay over 45 minutes to an hour just so that we can prepare for the next day or just to get caught up on our regular library duties. And sick days and vacation days. We are made to feel that that is unacceptable to be off during those times. I was off one day because I was sick. The TIA had to take over my teacher planning classes for that day. Well, the following month, he was off, and I was approached to take his teacher planning classes, but it was put to me that I owed him for taking the time off. Back in July, when the teacher planning was presented to me, I asked who is supposed to oversee these classes if we have to be off. I'm still waiting for a response on that. This year I've had health issues and stress issues, and I generally never take any sick days. I have spoken to my administrator, and she is very supportive with my needs to an extent, but her hands are tied. I've had teachers comment on how it's been so long since they've seen me in the library, and others who are adamant about getting their time. I feel taken advantage of and sometimes disrespected. I myself am lucky that I don't have the discipline issues that I hear other schools have. I can't even imagine that upon everything else we have to do. I know that this is my job description to be there for the students in the library, and I don't have a problem with that. But all the other responsibilities have been added to our workload without compensation. Only speaking to my school schedule, I am with students 42 hours for teaching and planning, 37 hours for rotation, and while teachers are without students per month.
Okay, thank you, Tammy Jackson. Time is up. Thank you. And now we will approve the consent items on the agenda. These items are considered routine and may be enacted by a single motion. Any items needing discussion may be moved to the appropriate section of the agenda upon the request of any member of the board. Can I have a motion to approve?
I'll move.
Motion was made by Vivian Hanson. Can I have a second to the motion?
I'll second.
Motion was made by Sonia De Leon. Any discussion?
Yes, I have discussion. On page 27, towards the middle, which is an item that Dr. Perez corrected based on my input. I still need more information as to regards to the expenditure being made. It's 40,000 pertaining to tree trimming, and that's funding from Measure I. So when I look at our district's website for Measure I, it doesn't state that money would be used for tree trimming. And so I'm really concerned because the money is stipulated in such a way that I don't see how the board approved it back in September 10, 2018. So I would like to see, and I asked, where is it on Measure I that it states that we could use money for tree trimming? When I look at, like I stated, when I look at the district's website, which is another issue of following up and following through, this is something that before I even became a board member, I had asked and of course never received the answer, is that one, we don't have consistency as to how we get an oversight committee. I know now that they do stipulate it, but I'm looking at how funds are to be used, and it just says improving classrooms, labs for college, upgrading school security, electrical systems, portable buildings, and so forth. But it doesn't stipulate for tree trimming. So I just want to make sure that my constituents aren't paying for something that they shouldn't be paying for. And I believe in trees. I know they cut 2 trees down from Lincoln Elementary, and I hope they replace them. But it's concerning to me as to not getting that information as to the Measure I in pertaining to fundings and how they should be allocated.
Mr. Frutos, would you like to address that?
Sure.
If that's your area.
So the example that we provided the board, I'll explain it again because it's a great question. Any of the trades that are listed are a not to exceed amount. So for example, the landscaping companies is a good example of how the trades work in a contract. The example that we gave is the work that we're doing at Odyssey to implement their gardening program. If you go to the site right now, there are trees that are in the way of where they want to build a place to do their farming, which will include a structure, etc. The landscaping company is not designed simply for tree trimming. And again, the example that we gave you lists all this information. That company will remove a tree stump that has been there for some time. It will remove a tree that's right in the path of where this new building for their gardening program will be. And because of that, landscaping, including irrigation, will have to be rerouted. So, Ms. DeLeon, you're absolutely correct. Tree trimming is not specified, but the project itself is part of the Odyssey development. So other trays are not specified either. So if a water line needs to be rerouted, we will either use a landscaping company if it's an outside. Picture the white plastic tubes that are for outside irrigation, or a plumbing company if it's for inside work. So when the list of projects that were approved, which I believe are 17 projects, are done, there are a lot of trades within that to either prepare the work or do the work. The outcome of the project is typically the completion of that. And again, the $40,000 doesn't mean that we will spend $40,000 in any one project. What the board is authorizing is that for work that needs to be done under Measure I, so for example, we are about to do work at Zamboni. We haven't brought that to your attention, but it's, again, a similar project. If in Zamboni, for the work that needs to be done, there's additional landscaping that's outside of the scope of the contract, which is a building. So let's say they disturb landscaping that's a little bit far away, and it's better to do it in-house, either because it's more cost-effective. By the way, sometimes it's more cost-effective to do it in-house because, remember, you have allowed us to negotiate a unit pricing as opposed to paying a contractor their profit also. So we do that, and in some cases saves us money. You will do that for trades like fencing, landscaping, technology that fall outside of the contract. So great question. We expect to bring you a lot of those trades. So please
I'm
keep
requesting,
asking.
for the record, I'm requesting that we update our website to show transparency, because our community needs to know and be well informed of how is the money being spent. Because it really, I wouldn't vote for something like this, because I'm thinking, no, well, you said that my money, which is my taxes and their taxes, would be spent on all these repairs and whatnot. So we need to be transparent in showing that. I also, before I even became a board member, I had asked more than one occasion, and thank goodness they took the minutes the way they did back then, because then it says clearly what I stated. And I stated that we need to have not only transparency on how people are elected into the oversight committee, because other districts, they have transparency and they change their people on the committee every 2 years. In addition, they state how the money is going to be spent, because we've heard in other districts that money then is spent somewhere else, and we don't know how to explain to the public, and I don't want to be in that predicament. And then lastly, I know I had asked for an annual expenditure report, which by law, we have to show to the public.
It's on the
And
website,
so,
by the way. It's on the website.
So I have asked for that, and it was on there for a few.
It's up there now. I'm pulling it up.
But then it wasn't there. I see Measure 8A, which is we're about to finish Measure 8A, but I don't see the annual expenditures for the Measure I for this year. So when would the public be expected to see that report?
So a couple of points of clarification, Ms. De Leon. You said that the expenditure report is not there. It is.
It is there.
It is not the one for this year because the year is not complete yet. So once the year is complete, we will do the report. Yeah, so every year we actually complete the year and then we prepare the report. Usually we do it within 30 days of the completion of the year, and it'll be up, and we see no problem doing that.
So for the purpose of the public, because when does that year end? Because for me, the year would end in December 31st. But when we're talking school year, it's different end of the school year. So there's no misinterpretations. When would we expect that expenditure report to be on the district's website?
So we actually do both. We have to do an annual, which is a calendar year, because our bonds, quite frankly, don't adhere to the fiscal year. So we do annual reports that are calendar based, but we also have to bring to you the expenditures of all the funds based on the fiscal year, which is part of our obligation to bring you a budget that includes all the funds, including the facilities fund. So you actually get both every year.
So
And
again, once again, my question is.
both of them the
what
same.
month
I'm
would
actually
we
answering your
expect?
question.
Yes.
30 days after the cycle, the reports will be posted. So 30 days after the end of the fiscal year, we will have an expenditure report for the facilities fund, gladly, because we have to do it. And then 30 years after the calendar year, we have to prepare a report because you are the members of
So
the.
then, again, like I'm saying, for the sake of the public who may not understand what fiscal year, what calendar year, exactly, can you state the month, like August 2019, sometime in August, early August, mid-August, that would be more of a concise, understandable for the public. And we, as we know, there are a lot of members of the community that are looking on the online to see our meetings. So we know that the number is high. So for the sake of clarity, could you please provide me a date?
Absolutely. So for the fiscal year report, we will have the report done by August. And for the calendar year report, we will have the report done by January. So in both cases, it's about a month after the end of the year. The only challenge sometimes is for year-end closing. If there are outstanding obligations in facilities, it might take a few more days to do the fiscal year, but typically by August and by January, both are done.
Thank you.
And you had another question regarding the amounts for the projects. The amounts for the projects, for each one of the projects actually was estimated before we went out for the bond, and those are on the website also. In some cases, the work requires a lot of preparation work, but what we are trying to do is always stay within the budget of the project. So if there is ever a deviation, we will come to you, but all the projects have a budget, and so far we've been successful staying within budget.
And under budget many times.
And under budget sometimes.
Thank you, Mrs. DeLeon. Thank you, Mr. Frutos. Can I have a vote to approve?
Governing Board Member Garcia,
Aye.
Governing Board Member De Leon,
Yes.
Governing Board Member Hanson,
Yes.
and Governing Board Member Cuarenta.
Yes. Motion approved by 4-0. And now we will approve action items on the agenda. These items are presented for action at this time. Some may have been reviewed by the board at a previous meeting under the conference items section of the agenda. Staff recommends that we receive for public review the district's initial reopener proposal of the 2019-22 successor collective bargaining agreement with the Teachers Association of Paramount. Can I have a motion to approve?
I'll move.
Motion was made by Linda Garcia. Can I have a second to the motion?
I'll second.
Motion was made by Vivian Hanson. Any discussion? Okay. I will proceed. Can I have a vote to approve?
Governing Board Member Garcia,
Yes.
Governing Board Member De Leon,
Yes.
Governing Board Member Hanson,
Yes.
and Governing Board Member Cuarenta.
Yes. Motion approved by 4-0. 2.2A, staff recommends that we conduct a public hearing regarding the district's initial reopener proposal of the 2019-22 successor collective bargaining agreement with the Teachers Association of Paramount.
I'll move to open the hearing.
Okay, motion was made by Vivian Hanson. Can I have a second to the motion?
I'll second.
Motion was made by Sonia De Leon. Can I have a vote, please?
Governing Board Member Garcia,
Yes.
Governing Board Member De Leon,
Yes.
Governing Board Member Hanson,
Yes.
and Governing Board Member Cuarenta.
Yes. Motion approved by 4-0. Is there anyone from the public wishing to speak to this item? Okay. I will
Hearing
proceed.
none, I move to close the meeting,
Okay.
close the hearing.
I'll second.
The motion was made by Linda Garcia. Second was made by Vivian Hanson. Can I have a vote, please?
Governing Board Member Garcia,
Yes.
Governing Board Member De Leon,
Yes.
Governing Board Member Hanson,
Yes.
and Governing Board Member Cuarenta.
Yes. Motion approved by 4-0. 3.1A, Local Control Accountability Plan. Staff recommends that we approve the Local Control Accountability Plan 2019 to 2020 for submissions to the Los Angeles County Office of Education. Can I have a motion to approve?
I'll move.
Motion was made by Vivian Hanson. Can I have a second to the motion?
I'll move.
Motion was made by Linda Garcia. Any discussion?
Yes, I have discussion. The final LCAP draft, or I mean, the final LCAP that I received, and I don't know if anyone else received it, but a lot of pages, I want to say at least 25 to 30 pages, if not more, were cut off. So I don't have all that information. I would assume that it's a legal document, and I'm to vote on this, but then there's numbers that are missing, so I don't even know what I'm voting for. I asked Dr. Perez to see what happened. I was hoping that I would get something, but I haven't received anything. I don't know if that happened to anyone else.
I think we were answered that in the soups, from the soup this afternoon.
Yes, Dr.
Thank
Stark,
you.
would you like to address what happened with the printing?
Yes, I'd be happy to. So the LCAP is a online template that the State Department creates, and we must use the online template. And when that template, which is filled out, as I mentioned, online, is produced as a PDF, and again, this all comes through the LA County Office of Education, it sometimes prints out where the first line on the page may be missing, because the text, if the text carries over from the previous page, sometimes the printed version of it short changes a line, a sentence. But when you look at the online version, so if you looked at the online version that's on the PUSD website and has been on there since early May, the entire text is included. So it's strictly a function of the conversion of the online template to a PDF format. And unfortunately, that's out of our control because we don't create the online template.
So then the online template goes to LACO.
Correct. When it's complete and after it's approved, then we update it on the online version and we send it to LACO. And we just actually have to push one little button and they have access to review it and read it.
Dr. Stark, what can we do so that next year LACO can improve that?
So we can give that feedback to them. They are changing, they're revising the template for next year because it's the first year of a 3-year cycle. So a new 3-year cycle, 2020, 1920 through the next 3 years. So I'd be happy to share that feedback with them. They're always looking to improve it.
Also, I would suggest that as newly elected board members, that we would be told that look online and perhaps to save the environment, not print all these copies, most which are useless.
Well, I wanted to state just for the record, Sonia, we did get an email from Dr. Perez, and if you would have opened that up, your answer would have been there to this question.
Yes, I did get it at 3:33, but life goes on, Linda. It's so if I would have gotten it on Friday or if I would have gotten it on Saturday or Sunday, that would have been helpful. But to receive it a few hours before the meeting, some people do have children and there are things to do.
I call for the vote.
Thank you for your discussion. Can I have a vote to approve?
Governing Board Member Garcia,
Yes.
Governing Board Member De Leon,
Yes.
Governing Board Member Hanson,
Yes.
and Governing Board Member Cuarenta.
Yes. Motion approved by 4-0. 3.28, consolidated application for funding categorical aid programs. Staff recommends that we approve submission of the consolidated application for funding categorical aid programs to the California Department of Education for the 2019-20 school year. Can I have a motion to approve?
I'll move.
Motion was made by Board Member Sonia De Leon. Can I have a second to the motion?
I'll second.
Motion was made by Vivian Hanson. Any discussion? Okay, no discussion. Can I have a vote to approve?
Governing Board Member Garcia,
Yes.
Governing Board Member De Leon,
Yes.
Governing Board Member Hanson,
Yes.
and Governing Board Member Cuarenta.
Yes. Motion approved by 4-0. 3.3A, Local Control Accountability Plan Federal Addendum. Staff recommends that we approve the 2019 Local Control Accountability Plan Federal Addendum that describes educational services for students provided by federal funds as required by the Every Student Succeeds Act. Can I have a motion to approve?
I'll move.
Motion was made by Vivian Hanson. Can I have a second to the motion?
I'll second.
Motion was made by Linda Garcia. Any discussion? No discussion at the moment. Can I have a vote to approve?
Governing Board Member Garcia,
Yes.
Governing Board Member De Leon,
Yes.
Governing Board Member Hanson,
Yes.
and Governing Board Member Cuarenta.
Yes. Motion approved by 4-0. Moving on, Business Services 4.1A, Estimated Actuals Financial Report for 2018-19 and the proposed budget for 2019-20. Staff recommends that we approve the estimated actual financial reports for 2018-2019 and the proposed budget for 2019-20, and authorize submissions to the County Superintendent of Schools. Authorize staff to make all the budgeted transfers as appropriate throughout the year. Can I have a motion to approve?
I'll move.
Motion was made by Vivian Hanson. Can I have a motion, second to the motion?
I'll second.
Motion was made by Linda Garcia. Any discussion? Okay, no discussion at the moment. Can I have a vote to approve?
Governing Board Member Garcia,
Yes.
Governing Board Member De Leon,
Yes.
Governing Board Member Hanson,
Yes.
and Governing Board Member Cuarenta.
Yes. Motion approved by 4-0. 4.2A Resolution 18-29, the Education Protection Account. Staff recommendations that we adopt Resolution 18-29, determining that all Education Protection Account funds shall be used to pay teacher salaries. Can I have a motion to approve?
I'll move.
Motion was made by Vivian Hanson. Can I have a second to the motion?
I'll second.
Motion was made by Sonia, Board Member Sonia De Leon. Any discussion? No discussion at the moment. Can I have a vote to approve?
Governing Board
Yes.
Member Garcia,
Oh, sorry.
Governing Board Member De Leon,
Yes.
Governing Board Member Hanson,
Yes.
and Governing Board Member Cuarenta.
Yes. Motion approved by 4-0. So announcements. The next regular meeting, Monday, July 8, 2019, 6 p.m. boardroom of the district office. Prior to closed session is necessary, staff employee comments are taken per Government Code 54957. At this time, the board will go into closed session to discuss public employee performance evaluation per Government Code 54957. Superintendent evaluation at 7:46.
And just a reminder to all, Vice President Cuarenta of the August 6th meeting that the board approved this evening to put on the website for the record.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
Okay. That's it.
Take, I don't think so. What are we doing?